Hi, Wilmont. So,
And
Wilmont, you are here in Kenya. You're an African American here in Kenya, and you recognize. We've had conversation about you recognizing that the diaspora has the capital, and we all know that all African businesses need funding, right? That's the big thing. Everybody's talking about access to finance. That's a big thing here on the continent. They need access to finance in order for them to grow their businesses. So tell us, what are your thoughts around the diaspora investing in businesses on the continent, especially SMEs? And what is it that you're doing with your company, Venture Lift Africa, so that the diaspora can know how to engage?
when I think of that opportunity, I think of high impact, I think of game changing, I think of lucrative, I think of transformative, and I think tenacity, I think intentionality. These are all the words that I think come to mind and are applicable to not only the opportunity set, but what it takes to actually see this come into fruition. I'm Wilmot Allen. Thank you, Anne. Congratulations to you on this event. I know the work that goes into these diaspora events, having spent last year and still doing our own. And as you alluded to, I run a company called Venture Lift Africa and Venture Lift Capital Advisors, which is transaction advisory. I'm also an investor through a venture partner role at a healthcare private equity fund. And I'm most excited tonight to talk about what I'm doing entrepreneurially with Indigenous AI, which is a Kenyan-based company that is advancing what's called precision medicine, which is basically looking at the molecular genetic structure of a population of individuals in a population or individuals, and doing what I call what essentially is predictive analytics about disease burden, reaction to drugs, how to better develop drugs. And the common thread, so it's not a digression, is diaspora engagement. And so all these companies are pairing Kenyan, in some cases, or other African collaboration and ownership with that of the diaspora. And so that's our model, both what we're doing with VLA, but some of the other things I'm doing to kind of facilitate driving entrepreneurship, driving investment and trade.
All right. Thank you, Wilmon. So health tech, I guess, is the space you're playing. Healthcare is very important on this.
No, it's not. It's not just health tech. It's across the board with VLA. So we should put VLA Capital Advisors in the chat as well, because that's really where they'll find out more about me and about our advisory platform. But we do work across different sectors, and that's very important. But predominantly right now, how I spend my time is work related to healthcare. Correct.
All right, thank you very much, Wilmon. So I do see here Miss King, Terian. We met a little while ago, and we had a very candid discussion about how you moved to West Africa from the US, even during times of COVID, and how excited you are about the continent. You've been investing here, you've been encouraging a lot of Africans in the diaspora to invest back home here on the continent. Can you share some of the success stories you've had and how you plan to work with the diaspora through the Africa Wealth Alliance?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Anne. And it has been an amazing day today, just following you guys and hear all of the different opinions and stories. So my name is Tarian King. I'm the co-founder of the Africa Wealth Alliance, which is a mega project consulting firm here based in Senegal. I guess the background about myself, I hold a Juris Doctorate degree. I work in international law. And so I've been very much so grounded on the continent for the last 10 years. Working in international business law and also international public law. In terms of success stories for me here in Senegal, let me start off by saying that I think it was like 2017, I started an import-export business here in Senegal. And so I import and export salt. As of 2 years ago, I started working in agriculture. And so I provide poultry to some of the top restaurants and hotels here in Dakar. And I think a lot of my success personally here in Dakar has to do with the fact that I put in the time. And so for the last 10 years, I traveled to Senegal, coming like twice, 3 times a year to learn what the demand was, what was missing, to really connect with people and see like what was needed here. Of course, I think as an African American, I came here and I was like, oh, they didn't have this and they don't have that. I could open this and I can open that. But the big question is there a demand for it? Is it something that the local community would value as much as an American would value? And since, I think I put in that time to understand the market, I was met with a lot of success. And so with the Africa Wealth Alliance, once I launched the investment firm, I knew that, you know, individuals in the diaspora, they will always have business ideas. We all have ideas. We all kind of like know what we want to do. I think the big question is whether or not it's going to work, whether or not there's a need for it. And so believe it or not, although most of my clients, they want to jump right into implementation. They want to like, I have this idea, help me get it started. Like, who can you connect me to? I don't start off that way. I start off with feasibility studies. And with the feasibility studies, it's really, okay, what's the idea? Is there a market for it? Is there a demand for it? Can a local population afford it? How much can they pay for it? How much is it going to cost? What's the profit? Is it even worth it? And so I'm sure you guys all know what a feasibility study is, but that's really step one. And I think most diaspora investors, they forget that you may have an idea, but we need to know if it's feasible. Even more so, I think with my clients, as I was telling you, they may know someone who's from the country that they're interested in investing in. And sometimes I find that it can be an inheritor, it can be their neighbor next door, and they are trusting the investment advice from those individuals. And I'm like, I hate to tell you, but Mamadou from Senegal, who's based in New York, he's going to always tell you that your idea is going to work and that Senegalese people are going to love it and like you're going to become a millionaire. But when it fails, he's not going to be anywhere to be found. and I think for people who are, more connected to the continent, and so like first or second generation Africans, I'm always met with, oh, my family is in Sierra Leone. Like my uncle been, and it's like, did your uncle study the economy? Like, do he know how things have changed like since 1994? And it's like, I don't think so. And all of these things are important. And so here at the Africa Wealth Alliance, I think we have to humble people. You come in and it's like, you don't pay me for me to tell you what I think. You're paying me for me to tell you what I know. And it's like, I can't tell you the logistics of creating a construction company here in Senegal. Like I do law, I don't do construction. So we go in and we look at the market, we look at the demand, we look at the economy, we look at the finances of it all, and we see if it's feasible. And I think for so many individuals, that has proven to help tremendously, because sometimes the answer is no. For the country you're interested in, it is not feasible. Or the country you're interested in, the profit is going to be so small per report at like how much you're putting in. And so I would say that's the first success, like the huge thing of what we offer. The second thing, and a lot of people throughout the conference has been talking about like collaboration, not competition. And so sorry to kind of like add on to that, but that is so true. Collaboration, not competition. And so actually the client for the construction, which is funny because he doesn't speak French, but what have you, he wanted to start a construction company here in Senegal. And he just wanted to like come in and just like do it. And I'm like, nah, that's not how we doing it. It's like we're going to put you with an existing local construction company who speaks English, who's going to be willing to mentor to you, because here at the consulting firm, I do the legal things. We have a finance person, like we have these are not our domains. And so it's like, I can't teach you about what it's going to take, once again, to operate a construction company. But what I can do is provide you with the resources and the connections to be able to join forces with a local construction company who have no problem with showing you the ropes, how to build your clientele, who's going to teach you about the culture within that industry. And then you get it pushed and you get it moving. Either you guys can work together or you decide to branch off. Um, and I think that has been I think tremendous in success too, even though it's another thing that we get a lot of pushback for, because people are like, I don't need you, I'm trying to do my own thing. And it's like, yes you do, like you do. It's like, you're not about to do your own thing, at least not with us. And so I think a lot of times when you're on the outside, we as the diaspora, we have to know that like we're on the outside. You may be from this country, you may know people in this country, but things change like relatively so fast. And you have to accept the fact that there's a lot of things that you don't know. You can like be born and raised in Kenya, spend all your life in Kenya, but there are going to be some things that you just don't know about. And you have to accept the fact that you don't know and then join forces with the people who know. And so I think, you know, at the Africa Wealth Alliance, we're all about collaborating, and we're all about just like really looking at the economy. And I think the more information you gather about like these business ideas and these concepts, even before going into providing clients with business plans, that's the next thing. Like people like to jump into business plans, and it's like, before we move into a business plan, we have to see if it's feasible, because there's no need to be making a business plan for a business that's not feasible. And so I do think there are steps. There are steps that you have to take, and there's a timeline. And I think once you respect it, we have really, really good success stories. But I think a huge part of the work we do just has to go in humbling our clients. And it's like, I know you're excited and we're excited that you want to invest in Africa, but things are very different. And I think a lot of times, to be honest, although some of, like, you know, someone here was saying how plumbing skills in Nigeria, how these are skills that need to kind of like be transferred in. And I feel like there are special cases like that, but a lot of times the skills that are needed on the continent, they're already here. And I think a lot of times we in a diaspora, we think that the continent is lacking, or like, oh, this is something we have to like bring. But it's like, you know, people are super educated. I feel like the average Senegalese person has like 3 PhDs. And so a lot of the skills are already here. And that's what I mean about like, you have to be in tune with the boots on the ground. You can't just come in thinking you're just about to, you know, like be the savior, even if you're Black. Like the continent, it's rolling, it's developing, super educated people, super skilled entrepreneurs, like everything is kind of here. And so I do feel as if when you're investing, you got to get in when you fit in, you know, and you have to see like what you can contribute. And I think it's important to like look at what's already there. So before you start something new, before you open a new business, and so let's say like you're really into smoothies, like before you open a new smoothie business, why not look at a local smoothie business and see if they can use an angel investor, if they're looking for a partnership. And so
Actually, Taria, that was going to be the next conversation. So before we go in there about direct or partnership, I really like two things you said. One, you need to be on the ground. You actually have to understand. And the fact that you've been back and forth for 10 years, understanding Senegal is very important. And if you're not on the ground, how do you find the right partnership, collaboration? That has been the recurring theme in this conference, whether it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's directly into business or you're investing, you actually have to find the right partners, the right advice. It has to be a collaborative effort for everyone so that we all win. Otherwise, if you do the small things, then Africa will never develop and we will not make as much money as what is done. So I really thank that. And I really wanted to go to Frida. So Frida is in the Netherlands. I hope it's not as cold as it is here in Nairobi. Nairobi is really, really cold. But I liked your story around what it is that you're doing in the diaspora. I mean, I think you got this idea of Village Circle from your personal experience. Maybe you can share that because I think you mentioned that it was very challenging for you to start and grow a business, even though you're educated. So share with us, what is it that you do at ZD Circle, and how is it that you engage with the diaspora so that they can find opportunities here on the ground, on the continent and abroad?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Han. I was just smiling and laughing at what Terianne was saying, because I think I'm a diaspora, and before you become one, you don't really understand, these things. But actually, everything that she says, I resonate with. But I'm Frida. I am Kenyan. I lived and grew up in Kenya and worked most of my time. And I worked in the financial sector, so my background is business and finance. And then I moved to the Netherlands in 2014, and then I became a diaspora. Wow. Which definitely changes everything from that point. First, you start looking at things theoretically, and then later you start realizing, this is not how it's done. So I'd like to introduce ZD Circle, and ZD Circle has been promoting what we call inclusive entrepreneurship and financing. And inclusive for one, because when I came to the Netherlands, I realized even though it was a really good country to do business even with global ranking, the diaspora, I couldn't find mentors in the Netherlands, people who looked like me, who had done it great. And also when probably I wanted to do business with my country of origin, like Kenya, it was always, missing gaps, like trying to, like every time I feel like you have to network afresh, you have to look for contacts afresh, both abroad and in your country of origin. That's how ZD Circle was born, actually, to work with diaspora and help them launch businesses, both in their country of like where they're living abroad, especially in the European context. When I say host country, as well as in the home country. We have done this, and we continue to do this through training, business training, because we believe, and I think Terianne also said it, like just having a good business idea and some money doesn't make you a business person. You're gonna hit rock bottom, because that's not how it works. You need some skills. You need to understand your business model. You need to define it. You need to look for innovative products. You need to do your market research. You need to get your costing right. You need to know your finances, your market, your customer. Like, it's an all big process. And obviously, if you're based abroad, if you're a diaspora, then you struggle with networks as well. You need mentors. You struggle with even access to financing. So I think in a short, that's the part we do for the diaspora. And then I'm going to explain why we found gaps and why we brought in the small and medium enterprises in Africa, because we thought the solutions were there. And I agree with the previous speaker that sometimes we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to connect the dots and collaborate a bit more. So ZD Circle has conducted a lot of country-specific programs in this regard. And so far we've covered, we were based in the Netherlands. So we started the first programs in the Netherlands, mobilizing diaspora, doing programs for them to foster them and help them set up their businesses. Of course, we have a unit that does local European businesses, but also as well as Africa. So I'm going to talk about our pilots and what we did. And actually in 2019, we did our first, we called it a Diaspora Entrepreneurship Bootcamp that we started in the Netherlands. We partnered with the IOM in the Netherlands, as well as a lot of local, because we are focusing on Ghana and Ethiopia. So we mobilized a lot of local partners to do this. And we did it was a 6 months incubation program where we, of started with training on all those issues that I mentioned, as well as then now went to the bigger part where we needed to look for money. So it was 2 months of training, 4 months of a mentorship, access to finance program for about 2 months, connection to mentors. We found a very nice partner, PAM, the Netherlands, who are senior experts who volunteered to do mentoring. So we did this. And I was so excited, and these guys are going to succeed. They were all doing green economy businesses. most of them, renewable energy, agriculture, food and agriculture was so big. Waste management, but also others like in the tourism and whatnot. So I was very excited for them. We did, the whole program. We did a big event in the Netherlands pitching. We invited financial institutions, and then we sent them home. Of course, we sent them home when there was COVID. So part of it, we can blame COVID. But then we realized all of them were calling me. They're like, "Oh man, we can't navigate this. How do I find, I don't know, people in my sector? How do I find this?" And it was really an uphill task with them. And then I realized our business model was incomplete, and actually the ecosystem was not full or fully inclusive, because we left out a big component, which was now like the local startups in the ecosystems in their own countries, and specifically in the African continent, and the small and medium enterprises, which play a bigger role. So I went back to the drawing board, and I was like, if we have been having all these SMEs, which actually support over 80% of the economy, with a lot of joblessness, almost everybody, even those who are employed, always think about employment. My biggest disappointment was, why then aren't we having big industries? Why are we still importing toothpaste? And sorry to say that, why are we, why are we doing certain things, and why then are we not seeing results? So out of the research now I realized then, for us to maximize on diaspora as a catalyst to development, and in this regard, using entrepreneurship, we needed to find a solution for them to meet and to belong to also the local ecosystems. And that's why we now started having representation locally. And we started obviously in Kenya, because I'm Kenyan, and Ghana. And what we did is we set up similar programs in the local countries. So like in Kenya, we have a DEB, we call it DEB because of the diaspora component, but we now target the local startups and SMEs who want to set up businesses. And obviously we try to bring them into the major program. So we have a major program in the Netherlands, and thanks to COVID, we were able to expand this program and include all the other countries. The US, I know we have people even from Japan joining the program. And for me, my greatest joy was just to see people come in one program, network with each other, and get each other solutions. So one good solution that we got, for example, we have a renewable energy company in Kenya that's been trying to get a solution for vendors in the market. And we had a diaspora person who had set up his business. He's Nigerian, he's not even Kenyan, he's Nigerian, living in the Netherlands, background in Yelling, and actually done almost the same concept and trying to launch. And he went in Nigeria, and he was like, he came back and he said, no, I can't do it. Why? He trying to get partners, and because everybody knew, of course, he was new, he didn't have a local market know-how. So he failed. So he came back, and he's been stuck with these prototypes here in the Netherlands. So one of the things we did is match them, and now they're actually building this, hopefully a good solution, not just for the Kenyan market, but that can be replicated in many African countries. So one of the other things we did is that we started the diaspora matchmaking with the local SMEs.
Sorry to cut you off, Frida. Sorry to cut you off. I liked one thing you've just mentioned, that you connected this Nigerian in the Netherlands to someone in Kenya. So that's a plus, right? So he had to think beyond where he normally have gone because it didn't work, and then he went into a different country, and it was through your organization, Digifatco. Now, just hold that thought, because I really want Shagan to come in because Shagan is Nigerian. I know he's a fintech expert. I love fintech, and I know he's been working on a way to connect the diaspora to opportunities. I don't know if Shagan, there's something you want to share with even Frida and the rest of the diaspora people to connect. What we need is connecting capital to the businesses, right? The people who have the know-how to the opportunity. What we miss in Africa is connecting and there's a lot of opaqueness. There's lack of information, or people are not able, don't want to collaborate. There's a lot of competition. That is something that needs to be resolved. Can you share and give some insights on what it is you think needs to be done, so that then now the work that VD is doing can continue to be done? What is your take on it around fintech and connection between businesses and capital?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, and congrats on the program. I joined a bit early before this session, and I must say that, I've learned a lot, and I agree with a lot of the thoughts and insights that have been shared. Just a brief background of myself, like you rightly said, my name is Shego. I'm Nigerian. I live in Nigeria, so I'm not in the diaspora, but at the same time, I'm very close to members of the diaspora, and I engage a lot with the members of the diaspora. Then I'm an entrepreneur. I work in the fintech space. But over the past few years, in my interaction and in my work, I've had reasons to engage very deeply with members of the diaspora in terms of understanding, how they want to participate, understanding a lot of the interest in terms of how they want to invest, how they want to connect, how they want to be a part of, driving progress in the continent. Which a lot of, the things that has been mentioned on this conference has really, really touched them. But for me, because my background and strength is really within the finance and the tech space, I strongly believe that there's a lot that technology can actually play to actually make that process a lot more efficient, both in terms of the connection, exposing the opportunities, identifying, how to aggregate and really access these opportunities. So I'll take it back. So I'll just backtrack a little bit. If you really look at it from a very high level, as a member of the diaspora that wants to participate within the African continent in terms of investment, or you want to start a business, there are a few things that you think about. If you're able to come back to the continent, then that's a different ballgame. But for a lot of people, that is not possible, And if you're able to do that, then you're worried about, do I have people I can trust on the ground? How much time investment do I have to make? How much capital have I got to commit to this? And for me, which is something that I believe Farida and Tarian already spoke about, there's a whole lot of opportunities that are already being accessed by local entrepreneurs across the continent. And this cuts across asset classes, it cuts across industries. Now, if the extent of your participation is such that you're not able to come on the ground to start a business, I believe a way to actually participate would be to find ways to support these local entrepreneurs with capital, with knowledge, with mentorship, with insights. Now, to do that is not very easy, which is, where it gets a bit tricky. And I think that technology can really, really play a critical role in actually doing that. So what technology does is really to create a platform. I mean, we're able to have this conference today because of the fact that, ideally we want to have it in person, but at least this experience is good enough to still be able to create value, even without seeing in person. So when we have access to this kind of technology, there shouldn't be a reason why, as a member of the diaspora, if I want to invest in Africa, I should not be able to do that. So for me, I believe that the approach, irrespective of what your specific interest is, we need to start thinking of how we can use tech to enable these connections between opportunities that exist and the diaspora. And there are three legs to it. I believe it is first a technology challenge, which is what I've spoken to a bit. The second part is the educational part, which is where, media having conversations like this, educating members of the diaspora about how to go about it. And the third part is the financial part, because, it is money, right? There are regulations, there's trust concern in terms of people don't want to lose their money. If one thinks about it from these three lenses to say, how do we harmonize this education to ensure that this communication is fluid? Technology plays a critical role there. if you think about it in terms of regulation, so the skill set, which is where the training and the local knowledge and insight, is to say, where do we find the experts that know the space that we want to invest in? So if you're sitting in New York as a member of the diaspora and you want to invest in business in, say, Zambia, for example, irrespective of the sector, there are probably some entrepreneurs on the ground who are already playing within that space, who you can support with your capital, who you can support with your knowledge, but really the issue is how do you find them? So for me, what we are doing is I'm connecting with a number of diaspora members to actually create a platform that enables this kind of connection. Leveraging technology to really drive this, education, show access to all these opportunities. So be it real estate, which is what was been discussed on the last session. If you can go on a portal where you can basically see all the information you need about a particular set of property, or be it a business. Because even if you come on the ground, the reason you're coming on the ground is because you want to be able to look at the business, you want to see pictures of, maybe the office, you want to have conversations with the company and the promoters. If you can do all that digitally, where you feel like you have enough information to make an investment decision or to make a business decision, then the need to really have to go is reduced and you're still able to achieve the same end results. Because if you just look at it from a very high level, like, the only way to do this is for me to have to travel, a lot of people will not be able to do that. So that's this capital that we're not able to unlock just because that platform doesn't exist. So really, I think that, the part for technology can be better harmonized. And the way to do that is to really just leverage on what already exists in terms of opportunities and partnership with existing innovators and entrepreneurs on the continent, and provide a platform where these opportunities can be visible to the members of the diaspora, and even more importantly, to the global community. And then you see, these are the opportunities to invest, and these are the ways I can do it transparently with trust, that I know that, okay, my money is safe, the people promoting it are credible, and then I have enough information, and then I can proceed. So, that would be like, my own angle into the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Shagan. I think, you emphasize the use of technology to connect. I want all of you to answer this question. We're going to take a break, just 1 minute, so that we could share to the diaspora about what is the Certified Homes is offering. But you're talking about technology as an enabler. Now, the question that I have, when you're talking to the diaspora, even if they're going to use technology, are you encouraging them to invest directly into businesses? Are you asking them to invest with partners? Are you asking them to invest through a fund? What do you think, all of you, what do you think is the best strategy for someone who's not on the continent if they find the right opportunity? Because strategy is important and there are different ways to do it. So think about it. Let's go ahead and just play this video and then I'll come back to you. Paul, could you just go ahead and just share the video for Certified Homes, and then we'll get the answers from the panelists. All right, thank you, Paul.
We are offering you a 360 degrees investment in real estate and properties. To start with, we are Favorite Gardens Nanyuki, where we are selling plot 50 by 100 at an offer price of 180,000 Kenya shillings. We are on phase 3, so don't be left out. Own a piece of Nanyuki, because Nanyuki is the fastest growing town in Mount Kenya region. Then we have Lumuluti James investment plot, whereby we are the only company that is offering you an investment. We are not selling you just bare land, we are selling you land which we've already planted hash avocado, macadamia and pawpaws. You are buying it as a package, quarter acre, 100 by 100 at a price of $500,000. And the demand of hash avocado and macadamia is in very high demand today in the world, and we can't meet that demand. We already have markets for this product in China. So hurry up, book your investment plot in Romuluti. Our mega project, Sukari Heights, we are at 90% sold, so only 10% is remaining. We have studios, we have 2 bedrooms and 3 bedroom plus SQ, a servant quarter, and it's a mixed-use development whereby we have having commercial space on ground floor. You have a supermarkets like spa, salon, gym, banking services. Then from first floor to 10th floor, we have in the residential unit, starting from 2.95 million. So book your units today. Certified Homes is your investment partner, your most trusted real estate developer. Thank you so much.
All right. So that was just a tiny little break. You can see there are opportunities in real estate all the way from $5,000 to about $30,000 affordable. So if you're interested, you can always reach out to the team at Certified Homes. And with that, let me go ahead and Wilma, maybe you can start off. Should the diaspora invest directly in partnership or a fund? Or should they do all? What is your take on it in regards to diaspora?
Sure, I think it depends on the investor strategy. So for some people that will be that would involve some other dimensions of investment like impact, job creation. For others, it will be pure financial return. But I think the common denominator among all those approaches would be you have to have a good local intermediary, a local market player, and you have to have a certain risk appetite to do that successfully cross-border. And I would say also that it's really important to understand the time dimension. The asset classes here that are investing are now shifting to, I think, a more, I would call it, suitable model for the realities of the African country markets. So that may not be the typical private equity model. It could be an evergreen model, buy and hold for a while, or there are new models being developed, I think, by some really innovative institutions. So I'll stop there.
All right. So it depends. So at least that's why you need an advisor to make you make sense. What is it that works for you particularly as an investor? Because not what will work for a friend of yours might not work for you. Thank you, Wilman. What about you, Frida? What do you think?
Thank you, Han. So I think one of the issues, and I think that was tackled in the previous session, is trust. And I think every day there are success stories about investing in over intermediaries, but on the same level, there are daily news about, investments gone bad, or even intermediaries that are logged. So the diaspora continue, suffering from this issue of trust. And we even started with having them invest directly into SMEs, but by an intermediary. And that was not embraced so well. Why? I like what the previous speaker said about education and lack of capacity. And because you can't invest in what you don't understand. And that's why actually most of the people have been relying on intermediaries. So I think education would be very, very important in terms of educating people, especially also in the diaspora, about whatever products that are there, be as transparent as possible in your offerings, because I know it's very easy to write 17%, 25%, 40%, but then what's behind that? And the other thing, and I think one of the biggest opportunities that are untapped now is actually investing directly into small and medium enterprises and startups, and more like angel investing. And I think we've already started a program in this regard that's called Venture Backers Program. And the idea, actually the first cohorts will come in August. And the idea behind this is actually to train now the investors, not just actually the diaspora investors, even investors, small investors within the African countries. Why? Because people do not understand even the basics of investing, be it in real estate, be it in bonds, whatever it is. It's usually an upfront task. And so the other thing is people do not understand how do we evaluate these investments, whatever they are. But even so, the businesses that you're investing in, or the ventures that you're investing in, and of course, evaluation involves due diligence and whatnot. So people do not understand when you have to invest cross-border, because when you're living abroad, you're already doing a cross-border investment, and you really need to understand the pros, the cons, how to go about it, and whatnot. So I think, and I think education is great. And one of them, this is just a solution what Zidi Sacco is doing. But of course, I think we should see more and more drive towards that direction, so that people really understand what is it that they're investing in. The other point is involvement. You know, it's good if you're planning to work with diaspora to involve them from the onset. And by this, I'm not saying involve the whole crowd or do programs that involve the whole crowd. Of course, you have to start from somewhere. But if this solution, if you're offering a product in Senegal, in Nigeria, in Kenya, wherever it is, then let the people own the process. Not really owning part of your business, but involving them as much as possible, so that we build this trust. And I think the other day, in another conference that I was at, people were trying to brainstorm on the best ways to foster collaboration, not just, with service providers, that in this case, people offering all the products of the diaspora, but also involving the government, involving consulars, involving business people. So we need to create a complete ecosystem that really allows this transparency and expression. And so I think these investments can come in. Thank you.
All right. Before I go to Shagan, quite interesting that you're saying that you think the diaspora would invest in a business and the investors should get involved. My experience here in East Africa is a lot of people don't want an investor to come and get involved. They want the money, but they're like, let me do my business my way, right? And that's why we have a hard time getting angel investors and equity investors. So I'm quite curious what you think is the right diaspora engagement if the person on the ground is saying, I know what I'm doing, just give me the money, let me work. So maybe think about it, and then I'll go to Shagan and you can answer that question around what do you think is the best strategy going forward for the diaspora? Is it directly, partnership, or in a fund?
Yeah.
So you know what it is they're looking for, right?
Yeah, I mean, it gets a bit tricky to answer the question, right? It's like the typical lawyer response where you're like, it depends. But I think to answer the question, what I would say first of all is, so I'll speak on two things. The first is around understanding the reason behind diaspora investments. So there's a reason why investing in real estate and investing in startups/SME seem to be popular among diaspora members. And that's really because those are the kind of investment that give you the highest level of emotional connection. Because there's actually research that has shown that, yes, the diaspora wants to make economic returns, but beyond just the economic returns, they also want to, their investment is also a way to be connected to the continent. It's a way to feel among. So if you're out of the continent, you want to support, you want to feel like, you're doing something. And of course, you want to make money while doing that. However, those are also the investments that require the most capital and efforts. So it gets a bit tricky, because if you want to invest in a business, you need a lot more information. You need to be close to it. If you want to invest in real estate, a lot of time, it's capital intensive, there's a lot of decisions to be made. Which takes me to the next part of it, which is fractional investing, which is like a trend that has really picked up in the US and Europe and all that, which is around how do we really sort of securitize these assets and create them into asset class such that even if you don't have as much money, but you want to invest in a startup, you can do that. Even if you don't have as much money to buy a full unit of an apartment, but you want to invest in real estate, you can do that and still get the kind of benefits and the connection that you would get if you were investing in these assets directly. Now, based on those key layers, would then determine for you as an individual investor, which one applies to you. If you look at it from the perspective of the reason I'm investing is so that I can make pure economic returns. In fact, if I'm being honest, maybe depending on how sophisticated you are, maybe Africa might not even be your best bet. Perhaps you want to go and do crypto or something, depending on how your risk appetite. But for a lot of people, that is not it. It is also about that connection and all that. So you have to look at it in terms of, personal portfolio. What can you afford? You want exposure to real estate, but you can't afford to buy a unit, or you don't want to buy a unit yet, but you still want to get that exposure. Then you have to find a way to do it, which is where technology again comes in. Because how do you do that fractionalization efficiently? It has to be through technology, because otherwise, you have to just go all the way. So for me, again, it depends, but the depending is a function of where you are, within the scope of your investment journey and the objective of your investment for wanting to participate, within in the African opportunity. So yes, it depends on it depends on those factors.
You say that, Tarian. Shagan has repeated it like 100 times. It depends. It depends. It depends. What's your take on it? Does it depend, or do you think this is the way the diaspora should engage?
For me, within my experience of consulting, and I think just being exposed to a number of diverse investors, I have never seen an investor who has been in a position to just come in and open up shop. And so I don't encourage it. I don't think I'm a supporter of that avenue. And I think it leads to a lot of problems. On the other hand, I do believe in partnerships. I think partnerships are the way to go in terms of like investing directly into the business. I think that's the best avenue, becoming business partners, providing capital equity, whatever, like finding some type of deal along those sides. And I think, but if we put that concept towards a platform, and I do have some kind of like, not concerns, but it's a legal issue. And so I think it's so easy to say, okay, to have a platform, and then we have these opportunities, and then we're going to have people who's going to invest money in those opportunities. That sounds great. That sounds amazing. Like I've thought about it myself. I've like been in communication, like, I've like started this. And I think like the project was going great. But then when you get to the legal aspects of it, because it's like, oh, now we're hitting like international business law. And if it's American, like now you have the SEC, and depending on how much money is, we're starting to trigger certain things. And when you look at the logistics of those legal regulations, then it's kind of like, well, based on the law, it's maybe easier to invest in this rather than to invest in this. So it's easier to invest this way rather than that way. And I find that a lot of times the legal aspect is kind of like counterproductive to what the continent actually needs. And so that's something that I myself am trying to grapple with and figure out in terms of, plug in opportunities to investors in the continent and technology, because we have this technology and it's like, it's the missing part. That's what we thought, like, right? It's like, if we can just get this on a platform, it'll be great. And I think my personal project now is like, okay, how can we do it with it abiding the legal regulations for American investors, European investors, Canadian investors? Because if you have that amount of money coming in, you best believe you're going to be targeting a lot of regulations. And so that's my 2 cents. On one hand, I'm all about partnerships. I think that they should just invest directly to entrepreneurs, invest directly to the businesses. But I do understand legally, so that's very, very complicated, especially when you have investors coming from different areas. Even if the platform is registered as a foreign LLC or a corporation, if you have a lot of American investors, once you hit a certain threshold, you're legally obligated to have to register under the SEC. And so, you know, not to get legal, but it's that's a whole different thing. And, you know, maybe eventually your girl going to figure it out, and I'm going to come to y'all and I'm going to be like, yo, I'll figure it out. This is what we have to do. And so I'll keep y'all updated.
Yes, definitely legal issues is a problem, especially with the US, with the SEC, the retail investors. How do you undertake that? Because it's a very sensitive matter. So until we overcome that hurdle, we need to figure out there are ways, maybe organizing the diaspora in the States and then coming in as an institutional investor. I don't know, but we'll have to figure out around that. So you're the lawyer. Maybe next time you'll tell us what you figured out from a legal perspective. You can share that with the rest of us, and we can definitely engage. Now, because of time, what I would really like is really your last remarks around this whole idea around investing in operational businesses by the diaspora, okay? It's critical because the only way I believe that Africa will develop is through business, not aid, trade, not aid. We need to support these businesses. The businesses are small, the businesses are informal. There's so many hurdles. I'm in this space, even trying to get them to put their financial records is the problem. Governance is the problem. All those things that are required for you to invest into a business are a challenge. We're seeing Frida doing a lot of around capacity building, training, so that we make them prepared, but that's still a challenge. What do you think the diaspora needs to do, right? If you're talking to the diaspora, because you're talking to them right now, they're either on the Zoom or they'll watch later on. What do you say the diaspora needs to do in order for them to support local businesses on the ground in Africa? And then it's a win-win situation for both. The African businesses get the money, the capacity, the access to market that they need, and the investors in the diaspora get the returns that they need, which they would not be able to get around the world. What is your take with that? So while you're answering that question, go ahead and give your last remarks. I'll start off with you, Frida, because you're the person who is in the accelerator training, capacity building space. What is it that you think the diaspora needs to do so that we can solve this problem on the continent?
So I think I'd like to say it's two-way traffic. It's both ways. There's a mindset issue here. We all need to change the mindset, because even from what we are talking now, whenever people hear the word investing, everybody needs things about money. But there's a lot to offer. There's really a lot to offer, both from the small and medium enterprises side and from the diaspora, because like you mentioned, Han, one of the things lacking, again, is capacity, to have really good investable businesses in Africa. Why don't you think in terms of, building capacity for those businesses as well? Because as the moment the small and medium enterprises or whoever is in Africa understand that the money comes as a last resort. If you put everything on it's very easy to get, even local investments. And I think during our programs, a lot of diaspora people have been wanting to offer more. And I go back to what Gun said, that people want something personal, something they can resonate with, something that they feel are manding back value, not just because I want to make money in my country of origin, but because I kind of feel I have a duty to my country of origin. So when you think in terms of that, there's a lot you can offer, even in terms of sharing experience, even especially in terms of matchmaking. A lot of businesses need certain expertise that the diaspora have in the West, but they will never go and apply them locally. So being advisors is another thing. Being team members. I think somebody else mentioned about being business partners. So we need to repackage and just stop thinking about money all the time. I think it's nice to think about money. It's the means that we have, but it's going to think of other resources that we can invest. And then once we invest all these other resources, our knowledge, our expertise, our networks. Network is very, very big as well. Money will definitely come as an addition when everything is okay. So for the diaspora, obviously, and I speak from a practical point of the diaspora, because also there's an over expectation about the diaspora by our governments, our relatives, everybody local, like in our local countries where we come from, thinks about a diaspora who is rich, you know,
Yes,
but the
money.
reality is that, yeah, the diaspora is not rich. You know, there's no tree in Europe or in America that people get money from. So the moment we understand that also, I think we should lower our expectations about the diaspora and start thinking about other things that they can offer the continent, that they can offer our businesses, that they can offer our governments, that is not monetized. And I think the moment we are the level ground in terms of thinking, then we're gonna put in the money. You know what I mean? So the trust building, it's a long process.
I definitely agree. There are things in business that you need more than just money. There's someone to invest their time, right? Their treasures, which is the money, and their talent. Because sometimes you take that money and go and hire a human resource, right? So instead of going to hire that human resource, you can actually get that partner in to work on that business. So I definitely agree with you. And thank you for sharing that, Frida. Now, Wilmont, I know you do have to leave. If you can just share with us your last remark and just talk to us, what do you think the diaspora can engage in with African business to make sure we solve this? It's a dire problem. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm going to approach this from a different angle. And so I'd love to stay in touch with all my panelists. Thank you again for having me. I do have another call. But I'm going to piggyback on what Frida last said about lowering expectations of the diaspora. I actually think you should raise them. And I'll tell you why. It's really important that we understand that diaspora is not a monolith, right? So we haven't unpacked what we mean by diaspora. And I think that's a different panel, and we probably don't have time for it now. But one thing I will say is I do think the diaspora is rich. And I do think the diaspora is ready to engage. I think that richness can't just be measured in financial wealth. It has to be looked at in other ways. For example, I'm African-American, and it's undeniable that African-Americans build brands, which is why we are so focused on, yes, exports into Africa, but taking great African brands into America. That's really important. But I think the thing that's most important for this to happen is not money, it's not knowledge of markets on their own. It's simply this. I think one important element or segment of the diaspora, which I think is really underserved when it comes to African-American engagement. I do salute my sister Taryn King for all of her great work, is this. I think African-Americans have to be welcomed here, right? I think that's really important, not just to assume, but to say it. Follow the lead of Ghana, maybe to some extent, that's one model, but I think there are other models, whether it's through special engagement from a standpoint of policy, tourist events that target that community. Do you not think that NBA players who are now expanding into Africa through NBA Africa would ignore Africa if the presidents of the chambers of commerce, presidents of head of states reached out to them and said, "We want you here"? That would happen in an instant. And so I think there has to be a welcome, a karibu, and we have to have that. I know there are tensions that some of our brothers and sisters come from Africa, go into America and get educated, have terrible experiences with African Americans. And so the second dimension of what I'll say is what's needed. And this is a spiritual thing. I think we have to bring this into this conversation, is more love. We have to have more love for each other as Black people, seeing ourselves as people who are agents, who can drive the growth in Africa and don't have to now answer to anyone for that, and can proudly say, we should be self-autonomous. We have the richness in the earth, but more importantly, the richness in what God has placed in each of us, and a destiny that's yet to be realized. And we have to grab the authority of that and stand in that and possess that, which is why I say the diaspora is rich. So I say to all of you who are on the continent, in the diaspora, and friends of all of us, that it's in our hands. The power is in our hands. We can do great things, but it's going to take cooperation. We've seen that in the chat. But I want to direct it to us, to this love word, because that is a spiritual, oftentimes seen as emotional force that I think now we need. We have some encouragement through the Black Lives Matter movement, through other things, which, but we needed that before. We need it even greater now before Black Lives Matter movement, in terms of the political movement, to how that can be applied economically. And we've seen that, right? What does that look like? That looks like, I'm here in East Africa. Everyone knows that Kenyans are great entrepreneurs, but also I don't think people know that there's a significant Indian population here. It's also very entrepreneurial. And you can learn from them. The self-love there is beginning of, if you look at how dollars are circulated within the Indian community, right? And no one has to defend that. No one has to say that's anti, no one else is accusing them of being anti anything else. But we all know when Black collective empowerment happens, that people feel that that's a threat, that that's something that you have to stand against. And so the division that we have across the world as people of African descent, we can no longer accept. Some of it we inherited, some was imposed upon us, but too much of it is what we settle for. Harambe. I'll close with those words. Thank you so much. And congratulations again on this excellent panel.
Thank you, Wilmot. I know you have to go, but that was powerful. I wrote Black Love Movement in the economic space. We have to work together. We have to support each other. We walk together. We work together. And there's nothing wrong with that. All around the world, we should be able to do that. And I do have to tell you, Wilmot, that I lived in the States for 15 years. We welcome our African-American brothers to the continent, just as they welcome us when we go into the US or any other country. So I do have to say that we need to see more of that, and we need to engage in a better way, and to make sure that we are all thriving, we're all doing, and policy is important, and we need to be more involved and intentional in how we engage each other. So thank you again, Wilmot, for that. I will then take it to Terry Ann. If you can just give us your last remarks, that would be wonderful.
There's nothing to say after that. That's like a standing ovation. Don't make me come after that. I feel like he said it all. Like, he literally said it all. The only thing I would add to it, in addition to, I guess, on the Africa side, in terms of making the diaspora feel welcome, is for the diaspora to come and visit. I definitely think that. So I guess, I'm kind of on the opposite side, putting the burden on the diaspora, specifically, even more so African Americans. I think if you can go to Paris, if you can go to Thailand, visit Bali and London, you can come to Africa. Like, there's a lot of tourist destinations. There's Instagram worthy pictures here, but even more so, there's family, there's people who look like you, communities who love and value you. And so I think a lot of times we see that there are countries that, do go out of the way to make people feel welcome and encourage people to come. But I think there's a large part of Black people, a huge percentage, that still, is kind of like caught up in the media and prefer Europe over Africa. And that's something that we have to get better at. And so, yes, I think give Africa a chance, come and visit, and don't exploit, don't come only thinking about money and investment and what you can get out of Africa, but come thinking about what can you give to Africa and not just what she can give to you.
Wow, Terry Ann, what can you give to Africa and what can you get from it? It's a win-win situation, reciprocal in what we do. And I think a lot of that has to change with narrative, the mindset and the stories that you're told. If I told somebody in the States, I'm Kenyan, I'm African, what is the image they get of me? If I'm in Africa and someone comes and says the African American, what is the image that I get? We need to have this conversation. We need to engage. And I think that's what the whole Africa World Conference was, which was us as Africans, Africans in the diaspora. And I always say friends of Africa. How do we all come together, right? We all come together because the place we want to develop is the motherland. And I think it's very important that we all engage. And last but not least, Shagan, what do you have to say about this? and your last remark.
Yeah, I'm just grateful for this panel. I think, the very strong words by Wilmot were very powerful. I agree 100%. I happen to be working with a partner who is American, but is a lot more passionate. In fact, she's the most passionate African I've met, even though she's originally, African American. She's lived here. She's very passionate about the continent. So, I totally align. And, I think we underestimate the economic value, not just of the African diaspora, but when we combine, the true diaspora, the true African diaspora, that is not just Africans in diaspora, but the full African, across board. The economic value is significant. And if we can find that unity of voice, to actually deploy it into the continent, you'll be shocked what we can unlock. And that's something that I believe in very strongly. It is not going to be easy, but I think we all have our roles to play. We have to continually be deliberate about wanting to contribute, wanting to learn. There's a lot of reorientation, change in narrative. It is not only for the diaspora to do, those of us that are spending more time on the ground, we also need to play our role. The government has to play its role. Every stakeholder must come together. But the point is, we need to identify that, there's an economic value that we can unlock if we engage the diaspora properly and efficiently, because they're willing, because the cultural connection is there. Because there's a lot of things where you just know that, you feel at home when you're here. And same thing, if I'm in the States or I'm in the UK, there's just that thing where, you just know where is where. But if there's no a platform to be able to do that properly, it makes it a lot too difficult. Like a lot of people just don't want to make the investment or, make the commitment to do the work. But we can't afford to let that deter us, irrespective of the challenges, irrespective of, how seemingly uncool some things might be. We have to be deliberate, we have to be conscious, and we have to just continue to believe and continue to integrate and continue to collaborate. So thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to connecting with everyone on this panel and even members of the audience. And, I've really learned a lot. So thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of your day. And congrats again on the success of the event.
Thank you, Shagan. And you mentioned earlier your partner, Raquel, who I met, very passionate about Africa, and we connected. And I love it when I see people who really are saying, how do we engage? How do we collaborate? How do we work together? Personally, when I say Africans in the diaspora, I don't mean that you're born on the continent and you migrated. I say, do you have a connection to the African continent, right? Can you trace your ancestry to Africa? That to me is the African diaspora. I mean, we had people on this call who are from Suriname, people from Brazil, people from all over, right? So they are connected to this continent. And so to us, that is the African diaspora. And I believe this is what we want to come out of this particular conference, which is the Africa Wealth Conference. But in November, we'll be having the Africa Trade Conference, where we'll be talking about how do we trade together. For example, I'm more familiar with the US. I know there's a program of Prosper Africa, where the US is very intentional to make sure there's more trade between US and Africa. What is it that the African Americans are doing to take advantage of that? Those are things that we're going to be discussing. So it's beyond us just making money, but how are we trading with each other? Again, we'll have an Africa Leadership Conference. Again, how are we making sure that we represent ourselves globally? How do we make sure that we have a seat on the table? Those are things that as Africans and Africans in the diaspora, we have to talk about, we have to communicate, we have to be able to be intentional, have a great strategy so that we can ensure success.